Hello, everyone. I'm Tyler,
And I'm Nikki.
and we're DGO on, and we are here with a very special new series today, known as our game reviews. For our game reviews, the way we're making it unique is we each have our own set of scores for a game, and we reveal them to the other person live while we're recording. So Nikki doesn't know my scores right now, and I have no idea what Nikki's score is. So that kind of puts a new spin on it. It adds a lot to the review, and we each not only get to hear the other person's, but you guys get to hear both of ours. So it's a surprise for everyone, pretty much. The four categories we have are story, gameplay, presentation, and accessibility. All of these are out of 10. Story is obvious. Gameplay is just how it feels, the mechanics, all that kind of stuff. Presentation is a combination of graphics, music, and how well the game is put together. And accessibility is based on replay value and how easy it is to just start the game for the first time. So, our first game review is actually going to be Fire Emblem Awakening, a pretty recent game for the 3DS. It was released in 2013. I actually got it for Nikki for one of your holiday presents, I think.
Yeah.
And then I got it, and we both really like the game, but we have no idea what the other person gave it. So I'm just going to start off with story. I gave the story of Fire Emblem Awakening a 10 out of 10. The reason I did this is because the story is so compelling, it's insanely epic, and it's the perfect balance of battle and background. And what I mean by that is that there's plenty of like action adventure type stuff for you to do, but there's also plenty of like plot and story to go with it. And I think it balances each other out so well. So that's what I'm thinking. And there's also dialogue just flooded throughout the game. The dialogue's funny, it's witty, it adds a lot to the plot and the story. One of the main things about the Fire Emblem games is that they're very emotional, and you feel like you're in the game. You're basically immersed in the experience. So it's an excellent plot line in my opinion. It's a good tale of good versus evil, and you're really invested in saving this kingdom. So
I also gave the story a 10 out of 10. This game is very story driven, like he said, and also like he said again, it's very immersive, and the story just does a really good job of making you feel connected to the characters, and lets you become attached to them, so you can feel like you're actually with them and just going on an adventure alongside the characters. And it just does a really good job of, since it's mainly a story driven game, it does a really good job of that, unlike some other story games.
yeah. And it's just like one of the best parts about it is that you're so like, in my opinion, you're so like determined to actually save Lise, or however it's spelled, Elise.
Good job.
Like I feel like I'm actually a soldier in the game, like fighting for this kingdom. And when you feel like you're in the game, you know it's done a good job. So now our second category is gameplay. Oh, and by the way, our final scores are going to be out of 40. So we will each say our final scores at the end. You'll probably be able to figure it out before then by adding.
As long as you have simple first grade math skills, you're fine.
And also, a rule for us is we can do decimals, but the only decimal we can do is 0.5. So we can't do like 0.2 or 0.7.
Or 0.51963.
Shut. For the gameplay, I gave the gameplay a 9.5 out of 10. The reason I gave the gameplay this high of a score is that Fire Emblem has that tactical RPG style. Fire Emblem Awakening is no exception. It's a familiar style, but it also brings about new mechanics. It's very strategic based. You must think ahead and devise plans in order to do well. If you just sort of charge in, you're taught that that's not okay because you don't have a game plan. You need to be strategic with it, decide who to put in the battlefield, all that kind of stuff. There's a wide array of enemies to understand, get familiar with, and be able to know how to counter. For example, there's a triangle in the game where like bows do really well against Pegasus Knights, and that's the kind of stuff you have to be able to know when you're playing the game in order to do well. You can decide who to take with you into each battle, into each chapter, where to put them before the battle starts, what weapons to equip them with. There's a side mode called the Barracks where you can expand relationships with each of your soldiers, and you can eventually get them married, which is a new thing they added into this game, which personally I think is an amazing feature. There's this feeling of like satisfying progression with every chapter you get done, because not only do your characters level up, they get new weapons, and you get a ton of money to spend on whatever you want at the end of each chapter. There's a new pairing option, which I said, the marriage, but also you can have these things called Master Seals. And Master Seals basically let you evolve your Pokemon into new classes. So like Robin can get evolved into a tactician from his starting class. So it's a lot of variety. There's plenty of side quests, and it makes the game feel long and fleshed out. The reason I gave it 9.5 and not 10 is that, in my opinion, it can get a little bit repetitive. Just the battles. Do you agree with me?
Kind of. I can see how they could get repetitive, but I don't know. I like them.
Yeah, I like the battles, don't get me wrong, but there's just, like, this sense of, like, oh yeah, same enemies, same characters. It's just, like, most of the time it's always a completely new experience, but that's such a minute detail. Don't let that drive you away from this game. This game is fantastic.
And as for me, for that, I gave it a 10 out of 10, the gameplay. I think it's just, I first of all think all of it is fun. Just, it can get kind of repetitive, but at the same time, I think that if you like the style of battle enough and all that, then it's pretty, it stays fun the whole time. There also, it has a nice twist on like the normal battle style, because most of the time with battles, you're in a battle with one person and then you just keep battling until one of you wins. With this one, you get to move around the stage, and each phase each character has one turn to attack the enemy, and then they can attack back, and then you go on to the next thing, and then you have to wait for the whole phase to end before you can get to before you can go and attack again. So each character can be used once, and then you have to wait until the next turn for that. It's in battles, you also need to use a lot of strategy, because as Tyler said with the marriage thing, they not only can those guys be paired up, but you can pair up just any of your troops on the field to help the others. They can raise their stats, they can sometimes attack for them, and if you have them married, they will have a better bond and they'll do better together in battle. But also, even if they're not married, you can get them up to a pretty high rank of companionship, and they'll do pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and there's also, with the family system, each married couple can have a child, and that child is a side quest. So that just adds a lot more. Presentation, I gave a 10 out of 10. The reason I did is because the cutscenes in this game, oh my god, they are beautiful. The main title theme song is so indulging. The battle music is incredible. The character design, although I like some of them more than others, they're extremely unique and they're very memorable. Like, you can remember each character just based on their personality and what they look like, and I feel like that adds a lot to the game. The tunes really are stunning. They capture the essence of each situation. So, like, when you die in the battlefield, the death sound really just makes you depressed. And even though that sounds like weird, like that's wouldn't seem like a good thing, it does add a lot It really helps all the sound effects they have. And the amount of battlefields they have that you fight on during the campaign, it's incredible. Just to name a few, there's a desert, castle, woods, a ship, a harbor, and a big open field. So that's just a few of the battlefields. So I feel like this game undoubtedly deserves a 10 out of 10 for presentation.
And of course, I too gave presentation a 10 out of 10. I think for this game, the graphics look amazing by any standards, but especially so for a 3DS title, as that's a small handheld game, doesn't have quite the power of like the Wii U or the PS4 or whatever, but it's still very good. The music is, as Tyler said, amazing. It is not my favorite, but it's one of my favorite game soundtracks. And the game does seem to go at a pretty steady pace. It keeps you interested for long periods of time. It doesn't get, after like a quest, there's not like 3 more chapters where it's just really boring and then picks back up. It's like the whole game keeps you intrigued for the whole thing.
Yeah. And finally, our last category is accessibility. And once I say my score, it is going to give away what my final score is. So don't say it, Nikki. Just, if they're stupid, they'll have to wait.
It's 7!
I gave accessibility a 10 out of 10. And that's because this game appeals to everyone. It appeals to casual players, and it appeals to hardcore players that are coming back to the series wanting a challenge. And that's because there are 4 difficulty levels, one of which you can unlock. It just makes the game that much more in-depth and really fleshed out. You get a different experience every time with who you bring into the battle, who you train up. Because essentially, once you start training someone up, you can't really stop. Because on the last 3 chapters, you can't go back and take a level 1 soldier with you, because that's obviously not helpful. So you choose who you want to train every time. There's a classic mode and a casual mode. Classic mode, once someone dies on the battlefield, they're dead for the remainder of the game. Casual mode, which is what I picked on my first playthrough, once they die, they're dead for just that chapter, but they do come back after that chapter. You have the ability to disable the tutorial. You can skip cutscenes. There's a ton of languages you can play in. You can choose who to grow your relationships with, who to marry. You can style your avatar in different classes. There's many ways to upgrade him or her, and you can choose who to level up, as I said, in each playthrough. So
I also gave accessibility a 10 out of 10 for what he said. So our final score... No, I'm just kidding. I feel that since there are so many things that you can change, as he said, this game has an extremely high replayability value. There are many different combinations of fighters you can use, and many different types of fighters. For example, there are horse riders, there are swordsmen, and women. There are... Shut up. There are Pegasus riders. There are just and there are mages. There are just all kinds of different attack styles you can use. And while there is a slight learning curve to the game, which would normally lower this score a little because you can't really pick it up and play, since there is a casual mode for people and a really easy difficulty, I feel that it's easy to overcome because you can, even if you're brand new to the series and never played a Fire Emblem game before, it does a good job of helping you through it, especially if you pick casual mode. It's really easy to get acclimated to it and just enjoy the game.
Yeah. So if our scores don't already tell you, I gave Fire Emblem Awakening a 39.5 out of 40, and Nikki?
And I gave it a perfect 40 out of 40.
If this doesn't tell you straight up our scores, let me just tell you that it's obviously not perfect, but if there's a game that can be as perfect as possible, it is this game. Please play it. I highly recommend it. This was my first Fire Emblem game, and I was skeptical, just like I'm sure some of you are, at first, but I got into it, and it took me a while to get acclimated with it, but I highly recommend it. It is an amazing game, if our scores don't say that.
Yeah, I find it to be a really good game, and I could see how some people, the gameplay probably isn't perfect for them. It's kind of an acquired taste, but for me it was right up my alley. I enjoy those action-based games, and I enjoy turn-based RPGs and stuff like that. And it was just a really good game, very immersive, and I highly recommend this game.
Yeah. So that is going to wrap it up for our first game review. I hope you enjoyed this new series. We have more coming your way. A lot of videos coming out soon. A flood of videos, in fact. We're recording a lot. So we will release those in the next couple weeks, and we'll be recording a lot more for our channel. So please stay tuned. We also have another new series coming out soon. We're not going to say what it is, but it is a series, as a hint, that you have found and probably will find a lot on YouTube. But we're putting our own kind of different spin on it. So
yeah.
So that's going to be it for this review. This has been Tyler.
And this has been Nikki.
And we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.